Winter days in the kitchen, and especially those leading up to Christmas, are some of the most inspiring to me. I've been experimenting with some of the flavors of the season, doing some Christmas baking. Let's spend some cozy time together in the kitchen. Last winter, my favorite sourdough addition quickly became golden raisins. I love the way they add to the same old boule recipe, the same old no-knead stretch and fold recipe that I use all the time when toasted, especially with butter slathered on whenever it's hot. It tastes so good with eggs or just on its own. You can sprinkle it with cinnamon sugar. Today, I'm going to do something very similar to that, but also maybe even a little bit better, and that is cranberry walnut. So I started by toasting up some walnut bits and pieces in the cast iron skillet till they were nice and toasty or brown. I don't want to overdo it and burn them, and adding in some craisins. So this morning in my kitchen, I have 3 times the recipe going for my no-knead loaf. This is what I go back to all the time. I have so many recipes over on the blog. I have them for whole grain. I have them for baguettes, ciabatta, 100% einkorn. I have one for the bread machine, which my younger sister Laura uses all the time. She's over at Our Really House. She just loves the bread machine recipe. That's what fits best in her kitchen as far as their schedule, their routine. We all get these things, these certain recipes that we go back to time and time again, whether that's for dinner recipes, desserts, cookies, and for us sourdough bakers, we all have our favorite bread recipe. This is certainly mine. I have tried to make our favorite bread recipe be an all einkorn and all whole grain, but when it comes down to it, this one is my favorite to make, and so I can do it without even thinking, which sometimes is the very difference between having fresh homemade bread every single day or not. Getting something you're comfortable with, something that doesn't require you to pull out a recipe book or read back through the instructions. You can just do it without even thinking. That is this one for me. So if you want to make that your favorite bread recipe, go over to farmhouseonboone.com and you can search no knead, and that one will come up. It's my favorite, but while you're there, if that doesn't suit your needs, search for einkorn, search for my 100% all whole wheat sourdough bread loaf recipe, or if you, like my sister, want to be very hands-off with it, you can get yourself a bread machine and you can search bread machine sourdough over on farmhouseonboone.com. I have something on there to suit your needs because I have tried everything and posted all of it over on my website. So if you even go just to farmhouseonboone.com and then click on the sourdough on the homepage, you can go browse through them even if you're not sure which one will suit your needs. Another thing I have over there is sourdough cookies, all different kinds. Today, I'm making my sourdough sugar cookies. I want to try and do a little bit of a variation on my usual just regular sugar cookies by making them into sandwich cookies, adding some sprinkles, making them fancy for Christmas. So yes, there are definitely elements of this recipe that aren't from scratch, that aren't perfectly healthy, but during Christmas time, we do things like this. So for the sugar cookie recipe, like any cookie recipe, I'm starting with creaming together the butter and sugar and then adding in the eggs and vanilla. With a sourdough cookie recipe, then the starter goes in, and just like with any other cookie recipe, combining the leaveners with the flour and the salt, and then adding that slowly into the liquid ingredients. The difference with sourdough cookies is after you get all the ingredients to come together, of course you don't want to overmix, you wrap the discs, so you divide it into, create 2 discs, in plastic wrap, and then put it in the refrigerator for however long you want these to ferment. Since it's cookies, you don't really want to leave it at room temperature. I've tried that. I've experimented with that. It never works out quite right with the butter. So my go-to method for this is just to make the cookie dough ahead of time, get it in the fridge, and the longer it sits there, that's the better it's going to be. For me, my ideal length of time is about 3 days. You can do even just a couple hours if you just want to use up a little bit of sourdough discard and not really worry about any fermentation. When it's in the fridge, things ferment very slowly. So if you're sensitive to gluten and you use sourdough for that reason, which is the reason I got started with it, I wasn't necessarily sensitive, but I found that it was just better overall for health whenever the grains are a bit pre-digested, and the very reason why some people can't tolerate gluten. So that's what drew me to it. And I tried to incorporate it into everything. And this is the best way I have found with cookies, but it might not work for you if you're super sensitive to only do a fridge ferment. Okay, before I finish up the rest of this bread and get it into the fridge for the night, I want to tell you about the beds that we sleep on here in the farmhouse that we love so much, and say thank you to today's sponsor, Birch Living. As we wrap up 2023, it's a great time to invest in yourself and your sleep by upgrading your mattress. Birch makes mattresses that are crafted with organic and natural materials that have been sustainably sourced. They're free from polyurethane foams that can cause dangerous off-gassing. That was the number one reason that drew me to Birch Living and to organic mattresses in general. We spend a third of our lives in bed, and so it makes sense to source something that will make that a safe, comfortable environment. Now we have the Queen Luxe here, which is comprised of 8 different layers of organic cashmere, organic wool, organic cotton, and 100% natural latex. It also has an added quilted organic cotton pillow Euro top and natural tallow latex that relieves pressure points. It has targeted zone lumbar support for enhanced contouring. The mattress has over 1,000 individually wrapped steel coils, so it really cradles your body and limits motion transfer. With your Birch mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial and a 25-year warranty, so you can be sure that what you're investing in for your home is going to last and serve your family for a really long time. Now, for your little ones, check out the Birch Kids Natural Mattress, which is a 2023 Good Housekeeping Parenting Award winner. We love our Birch mattresses, and I know that you will too. If you are looking for a new bed, check out Birch. They are offering Farmhouse On Boon viewers 20% off your first order plus 2 free Eco Rest pillows by using my link, birchliving.com/farmhouse. You can also grab the QR code here. Thanks again, Birch, for sponsoring today's video. I have a squealy, happy baby in the background here, but he might not be too happy too much longer, so we'll have to see how that goes. So before bed, with any sourdough baking, there's a little bit of work that has to be done. Well, if you use the same baking schedule as I'm doing here, I've switched this up a lot. So sometimes I'll start in the evening. If it's cool enough, I'll let it ferment overnight. My ideal schedule is to mix up the dough in the morning, stretch and fold it all the way until about 1-ish in the afternoon. Let it bulk ferment throughout the day, and then before bed to do this work that I'm showing you here, which involves pre-shaping. This is where you split the dough if the recipe calls for 2 loaves or whatever it calls for. Let it sit at room temperature. You didn't necessarily shape it fully, but let it develop a bit of a skin so it won't stick to the Banneton liner. After it sits out for about 10 minutes, you will do the actual shaping. So I like to gently flip the bread over or dough over, skin side down, flatten it out a bit, and then pull it towards the inside from the 2 ends, and then repeat with the other 2 ends, and then pull it against the countertop. This gives tension to the loaf so that you get good oven spring. So after your bread rises overnight in the refrigerator, you might find in the morning it didn't really rise a whole lot at all, which is really normal. But if you did your tension right and you baked it in a preheated cast iron Dutch oven, some people even don't preheat it at all, but you have that steam in the oven that the Dutch oven provides, it'll poof up, get nice and springy, and it won't be flat. So if you in the morning see that your dough just looks the same as when you put it in, don't worry. It'll spring to life if everything goes well in the oven. Now tonight I have 2 loaves of just my plain, no knead favorite bread recipe. And then I have 2 loaves of that exact same thing, but I added dried sweetened cranberries and toasted walnuts. And then for the third recipe of this, I divided it in 8, and I'm making little bread bowls because tomorrow is my son's 6th birthday. And for whatever reason, he requested soup and bread bowls. It's a little bit of a labor of love, but it also is really delicious and everybody loves it and gets very excited for it. Now, my method for this is possibly a bit unnecessary because I put each little loaf in a tea towel lined soup bowl and that's my Banneton. I had Turner Farm, or Ashley from Turner Farm, over on the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. We talked about all things winter and Christmas sourdough baking. And she said that instead of putting her bread bowls in little bowls, she does the bulk ferment, then puts her dough in the refrigerator for the overnight rise. And then in the morning, she just very gently shapes it to try not to deflate it. I thought that sounded like a good idea. I have not tried that. I was a little bit worried on this go round since it was like a birthday request, not doing it right since I haven't tried it before. And so I'm just going with my old tried and true method, but I am interested in trying Ashley's way. If you have not yet listened to that episode, go over to Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on all the places, Apple Podcasts. You can even find it on YouTube. I have the video version. So if you just search Simple Farmhouse Life, you'll find it there. But you can revisit all the sourdough things we talked about, as well as her method for making the little soup bowls or the mini loaves. I think that's what we were talking about. I don't think we were actually talking about soup bowls. I think we were talking about mini loaves, but it's the same thing, same concept. It's just whether or not you're going to cut the center out or not. So yeah, go find that podcast episode. She has lots of inspirational ideas also for homemade Christmas gifts. So I know it's getting a little bit late on homemade Christmas gifts, but when you're baking sourdough for the Christmas gifts, it is certainly not too late. To make these poof up, these little bread bowls, since I'm not putting them in a Dutch oven, can you imagine if I put my Dutch oven in there 8 different times because my oven only fits one Dutch oven? That would take forever. So instead, I am preheating a pizza stone, and then recreating the environment that happens inside the Dutch oven with the steam by putting on the bottom shelf a cast iron skillet with some boiling water. I'm boiling up some more water to add more water throughout the baking process. This makes them poof up beautifully. I have done the method where I put in pie weights or rocks because they hold heat, and putting water over those or ice over those to create steam. I've done the method where you roll up tea towels and put them in a dish and pour boiling water over them because they kind of hold the heat in the fabric and create the steam. I think the method with just using a skillet, a cast iron skillet with boiling water, works about as well as anything. So I'm just not going to try all that stuff anymore. I'm just going to do that for the steam, because the same thing happens whenever you're making a baguette or ciabatta or anything that won't fit in a standard size Dutch oven. You need that steam to make it have the oven spring. This method works perfectly. So it's a really easy, straightforward thing. My daughter and I also found that it works great for cheesecake. With cheesecake, a lot of times recipes want you to line the bottom of the springform pan with foil, put it down in boiling water. It can get really messy and dicey. All you need to do is the same exact thing. Just put some boiling water in a preheated skillet, and it provides enough steam to beautifully bake the cheesecake. Then to actually make them into bowls, I just cut down inside to pull some of the bread out, scoop a little bit more bread out with my hands so that soup actually fits in it. Now don't worry, I have something you can do to not waste any bread, even if the kids don't eat the entire bowl. We filled our sourdough bread bowls with basic potato soup, topped it with bacon and parsley. It was enjoyed by all. Let's slice into this cranberry toasted walnut bread to see how it tastes. Okay, I'm going to tell you. It's toasted with butter. This is probably my new favorite thing. The little crunch of a toasted walnut in each bite is so good. I did prep a lot of bread in one day, but we can't have too much bread in our family. It's so good toasted as a side with soup or for sandwiches. We especially love it in the morning with eggs. Now I'm going to show you what I did with the leftover insides of the bread bowls and the actual bowls themselves. Now I did scoop and scrape out any little bits of potato soup, and it's just occurring to me that some of you are going to actually find this disgusting. I don't know. We don't waste food. We just don't. I always find some way to use it because I took the time to source great ingredients, to stretch and pull the dough. All of the time and effort that went into it doesn't need to be wasted. And this isn't a compromise at all. You might be like, oh, just throw the food away. No, this is actually a really delicious and awesome way to use it. So I put it in the oven and toasted it till it was really, really crispy. Blended it in the blender, of course. And then tonight for dinner, which I'm not showing on this video, but it did happen, just didn't record it, I made fried chicken with those breadcrumbs, and we ate every last bit. I dredged chicken in a bit of egg and then into the breadcrumbs with some salt, fry it in lard. So good. Today is my son's 6th birthday. We have lots of things in December. We have 2 birthdays in December, 2 in November. We have our anniversary in December. Luke and I are married 16 years as of this month. So birthdays and celebrations and Christmas baking all go hand in hand to me. And I was trying to think about a way that I could make these cookies a bit more fun. Now for lunch today, my daughter did take half of my sourdough cookie dough and make a little treat for the birthday boy and everyone for lunch dessert. Now that I have some time here in the afternoon during nap time, I'm going to, with the rest of this cookie dough, make something special. I'm doing a cream filling by combining butter, powdered sugar, cream, and some vanilla. So essentially just a buttercream frosting. And I'm going to pipe some onto one cookie, make a little sandwich, and then put some little bead sprinkles around the outside edges to make them very fun. I have a whole bunch of cookie cutters that I get out this time of year, but I chose the simplest ones because I wanted that border around the outside for the sprinkles, and I knew it would be pretty difficult if the shape was hard to trace. I think I could have done it because with the piping bag, it's pretty simple, but the candy canes, stockings, and circles were good enough. The sourdough sugar cookie recipe over on the blog does make 4 dozen, which is quite a bit. Obviously, it doesn't make 4 dozen sandwich cookies, but it yields quite a bit for those cookie decorating days. My sister has an annual cookie baking party over at her house, and it happened to be tonight. So we packaged up some of them that we didn't even decorate, brought them over there because I knew we wouldn't go through all of them just for us. I mean, we would have gone through them, but that isn't necessarily the best idea. Now, last night I mixed up some of my sourdough cinnamon roll dough. What's cool about this recipe is you can use it as a base for any flavor your heart desires. Now, recently, I went with my mom and my sisters to New York City for a second time. I shared about my trip last September where I took my baby and my girls, and my sister and my mom also went, and I got to see the architecture and the old buildings and the new buildings, and I thought it was so cool. Anyways, I shared about that last year. We ended up going again, and my other 2 sisters came, our daughters, and we all had a baby with us because we've all had a baby in under a year. All four of us girls had a baby in less than a year. And so we all still have nursing babies. So we each had a baby. We had the other girls in our family. So my daughters, my sister's daughter, my mom. Anyways, when I was there, I had a cardamom latte. I wouldn't have tried it except for my youngest sister got one. And so I got one too. It was so good. And it made me think, why do I not use cardamom? I've never even thought to use cardamom in my home. For those of you who also haven't used it, I Googled cardamom flavor profile and came up with this article from savoryspiceshop.com. It says peppery, piney, eucalyptus, and menthol-like notes, but the taste of cardamom is also floral with hints of citrus. Makes it kind of difficult to describe. If you smell it, you'll realize why you shouldn't put too much in your recipe, because it's quite strong. And I think it could almost like lavender, where when you use too much, it tastes like soap or perfumey, but then when you use the right amount, it's delicious. So I just added about a half a teaspoon to the cinnamon mixture that I normally put into the cinnamon rolls. I could have gotten away with a bit more. I ended up adding a little bit to the frosting as well. So I wanted to do, this is a mouthful, sourdough, cardamom, orange custard rolls. So I'm making a custard as well. Today, my daughter made some pie. She did a meringue topping. So there was already a couple of egg yolks in the refrigerator. I mixed that with a bit of sugar and cornstarch, cooked it with some milk until it thickened, and then put that down into the rolls, baked it, and then made the orange glaze after that. I combined a lot of flavors here. I was dreaming about this one for a while, so thinking of all the different things I could do to customize the cinnamon roll recipe. Now, I have done raspberry rolls, blueberry rolls in the summertime. I've done apple in the winter. I really do like that you can take a quick bread sort of dough like this. I mean, it's not really quick because you have to ferment it overnight. But after it does that, I add a bit of baking soda and baking powder so that it can be sort of a quick bread. Roll it out flat, add in a butter mixture with spices, whatever spices I dream up, or more of a jam-like, something like raspberry. Recently, I did it with cranberry and made it into a wreath for another Christmas type of theme or winter theme. All around very versatile. You can do so much with it. For the glaze, I'm doing powdered sugar, orange juice, a little bit of butter, and then some cardamom, just to make it a little bit more cardamom flavor. These turned out so delicious. We all loved them. And my wheels are turning for how I can incorporate more cardamom. I'll have to try a cardamom latte at home. I hope that you are enjoying this cozy time in your kitchen, and may you have a very Merry Christmas.